Welcome to Discoverability, the secret recipe for audience growth. I'm Carrie Caulfield Eric, and I'm going to walk you through this presentation. Have you ever been asked, where do I find you? Are you on? Where can I? If you have been asked these questions, you have a discoverability problem. Discoverability is really about making it easy for a user, for a listener, for an audience member to find you without having to try, without having any frustration, and without having to ask you how to interact with your content. The first ingredient is to know who that ideal listener is. Have an listener avatar. This is an important step for anybody creating content, whether it's a podcast or a blog or anything like that. You need to know who your audience is. You also need to understand that your audience is not only your listeners. Your audience is anybody who interacts with any of your content. Once you understand this, the world of podcasting really begins to open up to you. Now, this is super important. We need to know that listeners are not downloads and stats are not people. And we're going to focus on people. It's time to stop worrying about getting more download numbers or more listeners and start really focusing on getting audience members who are a part of your ecosystem and your fans. They don't need to consume every single episode. They don't need to listen to you for an hour every week to be supporters of yours, to buy your merchandise, to support your Patreon, to buy your products and services. They just need to be part of your audience. And your audience is so much bigger than your downloads, much bigger. Now, personally, I am a patron of many podcasts that I don't have time to listen to on a regular basis when I'm traveling or when I have extra time or on vacation. Yeah, I have time to listen to their podcast episodes. But I love them because of all the other content that they produce as well on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, little YouTube sound bites. All of those kinds of things are ways to interact with your audience members that are just as powerful as podcasting. And it's not that podcasting is bad. No, podcasting is the root of all that. It blossoms forth everything else. And you can create audience members that engage in ways that work for them. So when we stop focusing on the stats, on the listeners, on the download numbers, we start focusing on the audience that's made up of people that we understand, we know who they are, and we can serve them better, and they can support us better. So the first thing you're going to want to do to take action is create that avatar, that ideal listener. Who is that person you're talking to? Now, a lot of podcasters skip this step, but those are the ones that end up frustrated when it comes to podcast marketing, promotion, and audience growth. So do not skip this step. And if you haven't made your avatar, make it today. Start doing it today. Now that we understand what our audience really is and who our ideal listener, our ideal audio ideal audience member is, we can focus on ingredient number 2, which is how do people find a podcast really? I want you to think about that. How do you think people are discovering your podcast? How do you discover podcasts? We need to know that so we can put ourselves in the position of a listener and figure out, is it easy for our podcast to be found out of the million plus podcasts currently listed in the iTunes directory? Ingredient number 3 really is about helping people access your podcast. Are you sharing it in a way where anybody on any device can click on your link and subscribe to your podcast? Because 74.5% of the world is on an Android device. And if you are sharing your Apple Podcast link, you are excluding 74.5% of the world. Is that going to help you grow your podcast audience? Probably not as much as you would like it to. So let's think about how you discover new podcasts. And I'm going to talk about how I find a podcast. Now, this is me. It's not going to be how everybody finds a podcast, but it is definitely the top 4 ways I have found the podcasts that I started listening to recently. Number 1 is friends. Friends recommend me podcasts all the time based on things I'm struggling with, on things I'm interested in, on, something they think I might enjoy. And they do that by sharing me the link, not the Apple Podcast link, but a link where I can easily go in and subscribe and listen in whatever podcast app I prefer. I get recommendations for podcasts from influencers and off of social media. So if I have somebody I absolutely adore and love to follow, say on Instagram, and they share with me a podcast, chances are I'm going to go check it out. The other thing I do is search. If there's a topic that I really enjoy and I've got some time, I will go in and search keywords in Google Podcasts. And then finally, podcasts I have to listen to for school. They are actually on the syllabus. So, some other ways I found a podcast from TV and YouTube. News article or blog posts. I read the news every day, every morning. I sit down with my coffee. I go through the Google News feed. I actually personally have a thing that in Google News that aggregates podcasting news. So I get alerts if there's a new podcast or any podcasting news. I'll find it there. If I'm listening to another podcast or watching a live stream and they happen to mention a podcast that sounds interesting, then I will go listen there. And every now and again, a compelling podcast ad will make me want to go listen to a podcast. However, that is rare, right? So for those of you who are thinking, I'm going to do a feed drop or I'm going to do like buy advertisements, for me, that doesn't work. And I don't know how well it works for other people, but if you're going to do an ad, you need to make sure that you're addressing discoverability first, because if it is frustrating for people who find you organically, you don't want to frustrate people who have looked at your ad because they will remember. and they will be angry if they can't find your podcast very well. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. Uh, I hang out in Facebook groups quite a bit. And for me, since my niche is podcasting specifically, I hang out in podcasting Facebook groups where I get to talk to podcasters all the time. And all the time, podcasters are talking about their shows and the content they're creating. This question comes up every day in every podcast group. I swear it every single day. And it's basically the same thing. I need advice on how to get more listeners. In each episode of my podcast, I interview different professionals, ask them questions. And this one specifically, I put it up because this is a podcast I actually thought would be interesting for my kid. It's about kids asking questions about science and having professionals answer them. And I was like, I bet that would be really fun to listen to with my own kid. Now, how does this person get more listeners? And here's the advice she got. Hmm, go read this article on podcast marketing. Well, the article on podcast marketing was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Um, but I'll tell you what it was missing in a minute. Like commenter number 2 said, do a promo swap and link to a how-to video. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, there's something very basic missing here. Commenter 3 said, you should go on other podcasts. And I was like, yeah, that's a good advice as well. However, we're missing something. So, because I immediately wanted to listen to this podcast, I went to this person's Facebook page, and here's what's missing. There's no link to this person's podcast. And in Facebook groups, usually you cannot self-promote, you can't share links to your own stuff. It's against the rules. But here I am as a potential listener. I understand the rules. I understand you can't share the link. I'm not necessarily going to ask you for it because it's much easier, much faster in the moment that I feel inspired to do so. In the moment where I want to take action, I clicked on the person's profile to go find a link to their podcast so I could go subscribe real quick and listen to it. There was no link. So your link to your podcast, that very easy to use, non-specific app link, needs to be in your social profiles. You need to have a presence on every social platform. You don't have to use everyone, but just have a presence. And then you need a link to your podcast so that when you interact with people and you tell them or you talk about your show or you tell them about your show, you don't necessarily need to like spam the link. You can say, oh, the link's in my profile, link in my bio, right? Or you don't need to say that because it's there. Because anybody who encounters your content can go look at it. Even the 99% of lurkers who do not post, they're looking. Because I guarantee you, if I'm thinking I need to go subscribe to this podcast to listen to with my kid, I guarantee you there are at least 15 more people who feel that way, who went to this woman's profile and were sadly disappointed that they could not become her audience members. You can't get that back. No, but they won't come back to it because you can't go back into a Facebook group and search very easily. I mean, you can, but not like for something like that. So it is a missed opportunity. You need to stop having missed opportunities if you want to grow your audience. And it's so simple to put that link in your profile. Here's my profile. You can see I have my links right on my, let me just pull out my laser pointer here. So you can see that's what I do. Here's my Instagram, my podcast, and my Instagram. You can see exactly what I do, my business name, my hashtag. So here's what I do. Here's what I do, and here's my link. Woohoo! You can connect with me easy. Easy. And you can see even in my cover photo here, you can get an idea of what I do. I do a lot of podcast editing. Here I am on Twitter. I've got my podcast image here. I've got, oh, look at that. Look what you can do with your name here. I've got an article here that's pinned. That is my most popular article on my blog. One of my most popular articles. You can click on it, get right to it, but also here. Now this will take you to a custom page of links where you have all my important stuff. And I can go and change it. It's like Linktree, if you've ever used Linktree. However, this is my brand, right? This is just a page I made on my WordPress site. It's not published. Like if you went to my website, you wouldn't find it anywhere. But if you click that link, it'll take you to my website. And again, here on LinkedIn, you've got all my stuff, right? So it's very easy to figure out what I do, what I'm about, and how you can find me. So, what you can do very easily today is get a profile on every major social media platform. Don't have to hang out there, but you can just have your images, your about section filled out, your links put in there. Fill it out completely, those profile pages. Have an 140 character pitch about what you do or what your podcast is about, who you are. Use links that are easily shareable. So I can grab the link from any of my social profiles and share it with anybody else anywhere. Or even better yet, I can say it real easy. Visit yayapodcasting.com/links to find everything you need in my world to interact with me. And then use appropriate hashtags. If you have a podcast about trains, don't use the hashtag podcasts. That's my niche, by the way, podcast, hashtag podcast. Your niche is hashtag trains. And see if you can't use some very specific hashtags like Erie Railroad, hashtag Erie Railroad, hashtag steam engines, stuff like that. That's very specific to your niche, to your audience. These are the hashtags that your audience is using. They're following these hashtags. They're searching these hashtags. Don't use podcasts because they're not podcasters, probably. They are train enthusiasts, right? This may require some hashtag research, but that's okay. You'll have fun doing it and you'll get to know better the people who are part of your audience or should be part of your audience. Ingredient number 5, have a website. Now, most hosting platforms come with websites, like a website component, and if you are just starting out, that is just fine. You can do a WordPress site, Squarespace, although that's a little more expensive. If you can get a custom domain, fabulous. $12 on Google Domains. Super simple. And then the top third of your website. If I'm on my desktop and I load your website, this is the first thing I see. That's the top third of your website. It should include what you do, link to your podcast post. So every podcast episode should have its own separate post. That annoys me more than anything else, to just get a podcast player and not be able to find your freaking podcast. I'm sorry to use that word, but it does frustrate me. I need to be able to contact you. How do I interact with you? An about page. Who are you? What's this about? I need to know more about you. Any products or services you offer. So your core products and services, you don't have to put on everything, but I need a little page that if I want to buy something from you, because especially if you're podcasting to make money, if I want to buy your product and service, I need to be able to find it. If you have a newsletter, if you have a membership, if you have anything like that, I need to find a way to join, because chances are if I'm on your website and I'm looking around, I want to know what you have to offer. I'm like interested. I am interested. Keep me there. Social media links. Oh, it's so annoying. I love to follow people on Instagram, especially people where I visited their website. I like their content, and then they don't have an Instagram button. And if your Instagram handle is weird and not super duper obvious, like mine, instead of Yaya Podcasting, is Carrie Eric, not super intuitive. So I have a link to my Instagram on my website. Super simple. And I want to be able to search your site. I don't want to spend time hunting. I don't have time for that. I'm going to be able to have a search bar, enter in what I'm looking for, a keyword, and I want it to search your site and pull it up. So I said this before, Linktree and the link using your web page. This is called like a vanity, a branded link. Linktree takes the users that you want to pull into your ecosystem, pull into your stuff. Linktree sends them to Linktree. So they may click that link in your profile, and yeah, it may have a list of your things, but they are automatically on Linktree's ecosystem. It's very easy to lose them. When you use yourwebsite.com/links, you are immediately pulled in. Your user, your potential listeners, immediately pulled into your ecosystem. So if you look at my page, if you went to yayapodcasting.com/links, you'd see all the links of all the things you ever want, but you would see my header, my branding, my phone number, my email address, my search bar. So you were totally there. So anything that you want from me, I could potentially give you. If you're ready to buy, that you could just go right there. Like, it's super simple. Now, if you don't have a website or you're using a podcast page, Linktree's fine. But if you have a website, make your links page your links page. And ingredient number 6, I know it's COVID, I know it's a pandemic right now, but have a business card, carry them around. They should have um, your podcast name, your name. Keep it super simple, some art, and a link to where you find you and how to contact you. That's it. And then finally, number 7, the final ingredient, my favorite ingredient. Talk to people, be social, help them, nurture relationships with people, and don't stick to online only. Make these relationships offline as well. Harder to do it during COVID, but still, when you have those opportunities, take them. This, I think, really is the most important ingredient, because when you build relationships with people, they remember you, they become friends, that's great too, but they remember you. They're more apt to recommend you to their networks and talk you up. And it is a rewarding experience more than anything. So talk to people. And when I say talk to people on social media, I mean, don't just like their comments, right? I had one of my favorite bloggers recently. She did a photo series, like a storytelling photo series. And I commented, I took the time because I love her very much and I've been following her for over a decade. I took the time to comment on every photo. She took the time to respond back to almost every comment I made. Let me tell you, I loved her even more. And I went and bought her book because she did that. Because I know she does not have infinite time, and she really did take the time out to talk to me on social media. And I was so flattered and honored that I did. I went and bought her book. So think about that one, right? People love that intimate interaction. Talk to your listeners, respond to their comments, engage with them. They will appreciate it and reward you for it. And I like to end with a couple things. Does your mom know how to share your podcast? Does your mom know you have a podcast? If your mom can't share your podcast, if grandma can't share your podcast, you are not discoverable and you need to address that. And then my other favorite is user experience is everything. If you give your potential audience members frustration, you will not get love. Make things easy for people. Reduce things to the least amount of steps. They will appreciate it. I'm Carrie Caulfield. Eric, thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have questions, do reach out to me. I do respond. There may be a little delay, but I do respond as quickly as humanly possible. Carrie at yayapodcasting.com. I love to hear from you. Follow me on Instagram at Carrie Eric. Again, I will connect and engage with you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation. And yeah, thanks so much.